Hello and welcome to another Doctor Who Big Finish review. In this Doctor Who Big Finish review, I'll be reviewing the New Adventures of Bernice Summerfield, Volume 4, Ruler of the Universe. Yes, it seems to be a recent thing for Big Finish, sort of looking at how Doctors deal with being put into sort of presidential roles, because in the main range we had time in office seeing the 5th Doctor be Lord President in Gallifrey, and again in September we saw David Warner's Doctor rule the Unbound Universe. But David Warner's Doctor's got a bit more of a harder task, as this universe is dying. Will he be able to save it? Who knows? Find out in this review. God, that's cheesy. So yeah, I was incredibly excited to get this set. So I thought it would be a good idea to do my brief thoughts on the previous 3 box sets what have gone by. So the first volume, Triumph for Sutekh and the Unbound Universe. So without further ado, let's do the recap of this series so far. Cue the recapping music. Volume 1, disappointing. Volume 2, was it a Triumph for Sutekh? Nah, not really. It was a bit of a disappointment. So yeah, Sutekh, you didn't really triumph there. Volume 3, I absolutely adore this set. It made me fall in love with David Warner's Doctor. I just absolutely love this set. So will Volume 4 follow the same front? So for the box art, I've got to say I absolutely do adore the box art, because it's a nice play on angels and demons. So we've got the angel being Bernice and the demon being the Master there. We've got David Warner's Unbound Doctor sat on a lovely leather chair doing some paperwork. We've got a chess piece, the TARDIS there, and a nice sort of fiery purple vortex there, which is very nice. Side of the box and the back of the box saying the main premise of this box set and the stories what are included. And on the other side we have the CDs presented. So for the individual cover art, the New Adventures of Bernice Summerfield cover art is very simplistic, with just having one character in a bubble. Much like the 7th Doctor's TARDIS in his title sequence. So we've got Bernice there, we've got some asteroids and the TARDIS there, and the Bernice Summerfield and the back there, showing the cover again and what this story is about, and the cast list, and the total running time for the story is 53 minutes. And for the cover art we have David Warner in this rather lovely chair. And the back of the cover there, so we've got what the story is about, the cast list there, and the running time being 69 minutes. Now we have Truant with the TARDIS there looking rather nice, and the back of the CD with the bio on the story and the cast list, and the total running time being 53 minutes. And the final story, we've got Mark Gatiss' Master, or Sam Kisgard, and the back, so if you want to know more about the story you can. The cast list and the total running time for this story being 62 minutes. Taking a look at the leaflet now, we have a cast photo there of the people involved with the story, and we have Bernice in this nice cosmos background, and we have production credits. Asking for a friend. So again we have a photo of the main people involved with this story, and we've got David Warner's Doctor in the cosmos now, and we have production credits again. On to Truant's leaflet, we've got again a cast photo there, and we've got the TARDIS in the cosmos, and we have production credits. Now on to True Saviour of the Universe. Again we've got a cast photo there, and we've got the Master, or Sam Kisgard, in the cosmos, and we have production credits again. The disc art, and we have disc 2, disc 3, and disc 4, and disc 5. As you can see, the printing went a bit wrong, and poor old David Warner's lost his face. The City and the Clock. Now if I was to say which of these is the most typical Doctor Who story from the set, then this is probably the most traditional Doctor Who story, as this is very much Bernice's story, as it focuses on Bernice, and the rest of the set focuses on the Unbound Doctor. So yeah, Bernice is very much leading an archaeological dig with unlimited funds and potential of finding a device to save the Unbound Universe. Sounds like heaven for Bernice. The story itself does have this Virgin New Adventures feel to it, as it does share similarities to Love and War, with an archaeological dig where the dead are rising from the grave. And also another Virgin idea we have is a dog ripping itself to pieces. But also we do have this sort of new series vibe as well. When listening to this, I felt like it was very much like a 12th Doctor story. The first 15 minutes are basically set up with establishing / re-establishing characters and how the Doctor's dealing with being ruler of the universe. And I adore the start of this story with some brilliant music. And we do get this fantastic moment of the Doctor and Bernice on this hot air balloon. And when we get to the sort of 20-minute mark, that is when the story really starts to kick, with ground tremors, with ghosts appearing. And I will say that the ghosts themselves do have this ominous feel, and the way they talk is quite eerie. And I do get this sort of ambassadors of death vibe from them. and I will say they do have a pretty good subplot. With this being the first story in the series, you can expect it to lay down some plot points that will be used later down the line. So we have the main plot point, the Apocalypse Clock, with Bernice hoping to find it, which is a nice little nod to the companion chronicle, The Last Post, where we saw the Apocalypse Clock within that, and that's meant to be the saviour of the universe. And it also sets up the animosity between the Doctor and Bernice, as the Doctor sends, Bernice to this planet to find the clock, so the Doctor can get Bernice out of his hair and out of the way, so he can catch up on paperwork. And Bernice is sending files on progress on the dig, and the Doctor's not reading them, and as soon as the Doctor arrives, he wants to leave. And we do get sort of several clashes between the Doctor and Bernice, because Bernice thinks the Doctor's read up about the report, and which he hasn't. So that causes some great sort of scenes between the Doctor and Bernice themselves. Now, you would think that the Doctor would be in his element, strange things happening, ghosts appearing, but no, this is the Unbound Doctor. So instead, he wants to focus on paperwork and the presidential toilet. And also lays down some very interesting points, who is this mysterious hooded figure, and no, it's not who you think it is, and what's the TARDIS up to. Now, character-wise, Bernice Summerfield, played by Lisa Bowerman, what can I say? This is Bernice right at the core, archaeological skills, strong, independent character, excited by the dig, showing Benny's passion, and, full of optimism, which is a great contrast to David Warner's Doctor. And we see a frustration in the Doctor with her being deeply worried for him, and we do see this nice sort of comparison between McCoy's Doctor and Warner's Doctor, and, Bernice feeling that she doesn't know David Warner, Doctor. The Unbound Doctor. Now, I haven't said how much I love his Doctor. I think he's one of the greatest Doctors of all time, and I don't care. I just think he's absolutely magnificent. He's one of my favourites. Now, if you've listened to his previous outings, Sympathy for the Devil and Master of War, then you might be in for a bit of a shock when you listen to the New Adventures releases. And if you haven't checked out the Unbound stories, Sympathy for the Devil and Master of War, I urge you do so, because they're like a £5 off Big Finish, and they're a nice little cheap fix to sort of understand what David Warner's Doctor's like. So in the Unbound stories, what he had previously, he was very much a traditional classic Doctor, whereas in the box sets, he still retains that classic Doctor element, but he's a bit more like the Series 8 and Series 10, 12th Doctor, with a mixture of Hartnell, Pertwee and
we have
Tom
some
Baker.
Great moments with him complaining about aeroplane entertainment. He's quite grumpy, very pessimistic, and you really do get a sense of the weight and burden he has, with him drowning under paperwork and him just wanting to do the right thing. And the speech he has that we're all temporary fixtures and dust of ages, and in the end we're just waiting to be buried by the dust. It's a bit bleak, but he does have a few funny bits. Played by Samantha Burt, Bernice's assistant, a very innocent character, shaken up by the events what are happening on the planet, and does become quite superstitious with the Great Collapse, and she's quite excited to see the Doctor, and quite a very
Jotu, played by
character.
Ben Ogrunde, the tribal leader of the planet, a very shifty, suspicious character, who, as you would expect, is against Bernice's dig, so he's a pretty arrogant character, and I guess quite a foreboding
Overall,
character. What do I think of the city and the clock? Overall, I think it is a great, straightforward story to kick off this set, with it laying down plot points to be further expanded in the series, and laying down the series arc. And I will say, if I was to criticise this release, I found the resolution a bit flat, but I did find it quite interesting that the Doctor couldn't stomach it, and it was left to Bernice to save the day, which is very interesting. And we do get the Warner Doctor saying, "Do I have the right?" which is a nice little callback to Genesis of the Daleks. And the ghosts, as much as I enjoyed them, being very ominous, I didn't feel like they did that much. They just stood there being ominous, so I'd like to have seen the ghosts do a bit more. But I will say the ending for this story was just wow. What a way to end the story. It just makes you want to go on to the second story straight away. So overall, I'm going to give City and the Clock 8.5 out of 10. Asking for a Friend. This is very much the Unbound Doctor's story. So this is very much a character piece of the story, as we see Benny make the Doctor go and see a therapist. So we really find out what makes this Doctor tick, with us learning about his thought process. Now, this story is a clever and beautiful story, so you do have to pay quite close attention to it, as there are little details thrown within the story, and when it comes to the end, it is pretty satisfying. Throughout this story, we see different moments of the Doctor being ruler of the universe, and we learn of what the Doctor actually thinks of Bernice. So we explore previous adventures with the Doctor and Bernice,
And those bits within the story do remind me of Rick and Morty. They are very Rick and Morty-esque, those bits where we see Bernice and the Doctor travelling around on these different adventures. So it is very Rick and Morty-esque, so if you like that, you'll enjoy that. So we do get some nice little action moments with the Doctor being in this war zone, and we get some nice funny moments as well with 72 Unbound Doctors, well, the David Warner Doctor. And my personal highlight is hearing the Unbound Doctor drunk. You know, he is completely smashed, and he's got an unusual way of saving the universe. And when he offers Bernice a peanut, I'll admit, I lost it. I just think it is a great scene, and it's just brilliant. But back to the therapist side, we do get some very interesting ideas thrown in, such as, is Bernice the Doctor's conscious? You know, does the Doctor feel lonely? Does the Doctor need friends? So we do get some very interesting morals explored, and we do get to see events through the Doctor's eyes. You know, we see the Doctor having fun, but whereas other people see the horror of it. So it's very interesting, and we do get a glimpse of a great war between the Time Lords and something, which one can only assume is the Unbound Time War. Characters: the Doctor, David Warner. I think that this is definitely his best performance as the Doctor, hands down, as this explores his burden, and we get some real powerful emotional stuff. And one thing I really like is Warner's Doctor talking about how he ignores the voice in his head telling him he could do more to save people. And if he did listen to that voice, he would go insane, which I just love. And Warner just nails that scene. So we do get some sort of a darker side to his Doctor. Along with that more sort of childlike Doctor, because he is quite a childlike Doctor in a way. You know, he's full of curiosity, and we see this sort of full mystery of his Doctor, and that he's not just this bumbling old man drowning in paperwork. Therapist, Gillian, played by Annette Badland. As you would expect, great interactions with the Doctor and her character, and her character just goes on a wonderful journey throughout the story. You know, she's this lovely, bubbly character with a deep sadness and very manipulative as she sees through the Doctor's sort of disguise, because the Doctor keeps deflecting the questions back on her. You know, she's a very pushy character, but ultimately falls for the Doctor's charm, and just the ending for her character is quite sad, to be honest. Bernice, Lisa Bauman. This is where we see Bernice and the Doctor really lock horns, with Bernice being aggressive, you know, with her, you know, being analysed by the therapist, with her trying to help the Doctor, but she keeps going back to the point that she doesn't feel like she knows the Doctor. And the way she puts it is brilliant. It's like when your friends move away and someone moves into their house, but you promise you'll still be friends with whoever moves into that house. And I think that's a brilliant way to describe it. And she thinks that the Doctor being president stops him being the person who he wants to be, which I think is brilliant. Overall, what do I think of Asking for a Friend? I think that this is a brilliant story, really exploring this Doctor with some clever themes throughout, and a very novel idea, you know, a Doctor visiting a therapist. We wouldn't get that in the actual Doctor universe, so I think that it's really fully taken advantage of the state that it is an Unbound story, which I really do like. And it ultimately shows that the Doctor does manipulate lives. Just a fun, witty script, with full of emotion behind it. A brilliant story, and I'm going to give Asking for a Friend 10 out of 10. Truant, the penultimate story. Well, Truant is very much the run-around romp story of the set, which is not a bad thing, as I think this story personally is a bit of a gem. And now I will be honest, I wasn't that fussed by this story when I read the synopsis. I thought, okay, it's going to be Bernice chasing the Doctor for the whole of the story, but thankfully that is dealt with within the first 5 minutes. And that really just set up the story rather well, with the first 5 minutes really having that sort of Monty Python-esque feel to it. It does feel very Monty Python, sort of Holy Grail kind of territory, the first 5 minutes. So speaking of humour, if you love Douglas Adams, then you will love this script, as this story has a strong sense of Douglas Adams absurdity, and it's just filled with a lot of humour and lots of humorous and witty moments, and just quite a hilarious story, to be honest. Though this story mainly serves to sort of reinforce points made in the previous story, and it does set up the final story. And I just love the whole idea of the Doctor just wanting to be the Doctor again, with him being the ruler of the universe. Let's say invasions are suddenly stopped as soon as he appears, because everybody knows the ruler of the universe. But the story itself is a very clever play on an invasion story. It also shows how good a team Bernice and this Doctor is, and the interactions between the Doctor and Bernice within the story are just a real highlight for me within this story. And of course the set, just the interaction between those two characters are just brilliant. Characters: the Doctor, David Warner, another brilliant performance by him, with us getting a great bit of biscuit banter from him. And imagine his Doctor flying on a jetpack. It's just great. And I love his frustration when he's confronting enemies and they're just not even putting up a fight. He's just like, well, can't you even just try and fight me, try and push me in these Galaxian piranhas? But they're sort of like, no, there's no point. So it's just I just love the frustration he has, just like, why don't you just fight me? I just want a challenge, and it's just great. And I just love the joy when he finally gets that challenge and he's being gassed and he's just like, oh, isn't it wonderful? And when he gets locked up, he's just like, I'm loving this. It's just great. He just becomes a lot more cheerful when he's locked up in his cell. It's just great to see that sort of contrast when he's sort of a bit down in the dumps that nobody's facing him, but when he gets a bit of a challenge, he's in his element. So I just love that. And we do get a nice little reference to Battlefield of him going, there will be no battle here. Bernice, Lisa Bauman. This story does seem to shift the focus back on Benny, as this story, she does get a fair bit to do with her being very independent and thus seeing more of that fierce nature she has, with her showing this authoritative side, which does lead into a few funny scrapes within this story. Gillian, played by Catherine Stewart, who played Jenny from the Paternoster Gang, if you didn't know. She very much plays this sort of servant character, quite a straight-laced character as well, and very deadpan, and very much the sort of straight man figure in this comedy duo, and a very good performance, I must say. Lakis, played by Jonathan Bailey, the fool of the comedy duo, and can be quite camp at times and very childlike, but is very indecisive, and very good performance, a very nice little character to go up against David Warner's Doctor. So what are my overall thoughts on Truant? Well, I think that is a fun romp of a story, and quite a light-hearted story, and just a really nice, clever sort of twist on an invasion story, with sort of it setting up the finale as well. The ending is just brilliant, and you think, I really need to listen to the last story now. And I've got to say, the real highlight for me with this release is certainly the interactions between the Doctor and Bernice. It just makes the story a lot more enjoyable. So overall, I'm going to give Truant a 9 out of 10. It's time for the finale, the true saviour of the universe. What an interesting story to close this box set, with this being one hell of a roller coaster ride with this thing. The Doctor put on trial and facing the music, and can he actually save this universe? So we have some very interesting themes explored within this story, such as, does the universe have faith in the Doctor, and is the Doctor fit to rule? So this story, we finally get back to exploring the dying universe side, with the apocalypse clock finally in action, and will it kill or cure the universe? So this story also plays on Bernice and the Master, so from previous events, what happened in box set 3. So this continues to explore that, so that's great sort of continuation. It also answers who is this hooded figure going around from the previous story. And this story also answers who is the true saviour of the universe, with the Doctor and the Master going head to head in a political battle. So it's definitely an interesting listen for that. So the story itself does have some fantastic, great twists, with the last 10 minutes seeing a fair bit of action. And I've got to mention this, the cliffhanger for this box set. Just what an ending. And I will say the ending is certainly interesting, and I cannot wait to see where Volume 5 goes, because I think it's definitely going to be an interesting direction where they take it. And one thing's for sure, Volume 5 is certainly going to be an entertaining ride. David Warner, the Doctor, a wonderful performance by him, as we see a different side to his Doctor, as he's a broken man and rather downtrodden, with him thinking there is no hope. So he can be quite this grumpy and arrogant figure, but as the story progresses, he gets some fantastic speeches about whether he can save the universe. And, as the story progresses as well, and towards sort of the end, he gets this sort of childish delight, which I really like. He becomes really sort of upbeat towards the end. So I just think that's rather nice. Bernice, Lisa Bauman, a fantastic story for us, but she has a fair bit to do with her working alongside the Master. So she's in this sort of state of constant disbelief with the way events are unfolding. But we also see the sort of fighter side of Bernice, with her fighting this robot assassin. And I feel like this story does explore Bernice very well as a character, as a certain question is raised. The Master, played by Sam Kiscart, or Mark Gatiss to you and me, a very smooth Master with this slimy and sly feel to him and very calculative, but you just can't help but sort of be lured into his trap in this sort of false sense of security. So he's just done rather well with that, because that's the master really, that he just captures you and lures you into his plan. I will say that him and Bernice are definitely an interesting pairing, with them having lunch and drinks together. So you see a different side to his master, and I will say he's definitely an interesting master. You know, he's very much the master what we all know, but he's very different at the same time. So it's very interesting as well. And you know, Mark Gatiss just does a fantastic job of us seeing this sort of diplomatic side to the master, and Mark Gatiss just nails it and even throws in a good old masterly chuckle. Mother Superior, played by Rowena Cooper, the leader of the Singing Nuns, and I have to say that is a great idea carried on from the last box set. You know, she's very much the sympathetic character who is very black and white and is basically your nan. So overall, what are my thoughts on the true saviour of the universe? I think that it is a satisfying end to this box set, with it tying elements in from the previous stories, with making it a very exciting listen. I feel like I enjoyed this story a lot more on second listen, because I think there's quite a bit to take in on your first listen. So I think it's one of those stories what really does benefit re-listening to. So I would recommend a re-listen with this story. And I just think the main problem I have, I guess, is that it's just a shame that the box set itself did lose focus on the universe is dying and the danger of that, because that's a very interesting theme to explore, and I feel like that is the main selling point for the Unbound stuff. But it is Doctor Who, because it's Doctor Who what we don't know, but it is, you know, because there's a whole sort of sense of anything could happen. You know, this isn't, you know, straightforward Doctor Who, this is Unbound Doctor Who, so I would have liked to have seen that a bit more explored. But I feel like James Goss just did a wonderful job of managing to wrap this story up within an hour and sort of close one chapter and begin anew, because I will say this, the New Adventures range seems to be going in a different direction, and I for one cannot wait to see what Volume 5 has in store, because it just seems like a very interesting direction to take it. And yeah, I'm not going to spoil the ending, because that's for you to find out, because it certainly is going to be a treat when Volume 5 finally hits. So yeah, overall I'm going to give True Saviour of the Universe a 9 out of 10. Another brilliant story, just a wonderful way to conclude this box set. Very nice, full of action, and if you love politics you're going to like this story, because it is a very political story with debates and all that kind of thing going on. So yeah, overall True Saviour of the Universe gets a 9 out of 10.
What are my overall thoughts on the New Adventures of Bernice Summerfield Volume 4, Ruler of the Universe? Well, as you can tell from the reviews, I love it. I think that it is a great box set. It continues from where the third box set left off, with it really exploring that with the Doctor sort of presidency side, and seeing how David Warner's Doctor copes being put in a box and he can't get out of that box. Really, so that's very interesting. I love the little arc the Doctor and Bernice go on, with them really sort of being locking horns, and then by the end of the box set, you know, they are really well cemented and they're just a great combination. I think that's another highlight for me of the box set, just hearing the interaction between David Warner's Doctor and Bernice. It's just a real treat, and they just make the stories just really enjoyable, and I think the stories themselves are great. I really do love the Unbound stories, because it's Doctor Who what we all know and love, but it isn't. It's great, you know. I think that this box that continues to explore and utilise the Unbound theme with the whole sort of Doctor visiting a therapist. I love that idea. Another thing what I like as well is that the Unbound stories are darker than your traditional Doctor Who stories. They can do things that are different, you know. I say that the stories are quite humorous. They are quite humorous, and they do have quite a fluffy exterior. But when you start picking the stories apart and you get to the core of the story, they're quite dark and bleak, with the whole idea of this universe is collapsing and is dying. You know, stars are going out one by one, and it's just quite bleak. But that does lead to a bit of a negative with this box set, and it's only minor. I feel like the box set does kind of lose focus of this universe is dying. It's only sort of the first 2 stories. It's kind of really, you know, 2 stories in the box set it is explored. The rest it's just like a passing mention. Oh, by the way, have you done this and this? And it's like, oh no, I'll do it later. So I think they could have made it a bit more tighter with exploring that concept a bit more. But I feel like box set 3 did that a bit more. But overall, I think that is a great box set, with this box set scoring 9 out of 10. It's just a brilliant box set. So I would definitely pick up this, but there is a but. I would definitely pick up Volume 3. Listen to the trailer, see how you feel with that. If you like the sound of that, pick Volume 3 up, then pick Volume 4 up.
But if you can't quite afford those just yet, then there is a cheap alternative, and you can pick up these for a £5 and you can explore and sort of get a taste of David Warner's Doctor. Or you can just get the Unbound bundle for 30 quid, so you can see all the different Unbound stories, what they did back in the early days of Big Finish. So that's it, that concludes this review. Hope you have enjoyed it. I definitely recommend The New Adventures of Bernice Summerfield Volume 4, but like I said, pick up Volume 3 first, because I don't think you would enjoy it as much. So I think Volume 3 is a definite pickup before you get this. So that concludes this review, and I'll see you in my next Big Finish review, which will be a review of the 10th Doctor Adventures Volume 2. That's going to be exciting, isn't it? Alon's here and all that. So yeah, thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you in that review. So thank you very much, and bye bye.